And good morning. I see Jamie in the chat already. How you doing there, brother? And Cameron, of course, we've got the backup Cameron with us. How you doing this morning, Cameron?
Man, I am rolling. Absolutely rolling, as usual. Though, I have to confess. I made the mistake of watching some of the new episodes of Castlevania just before bed, and it so thoroughly affected my dreams, I got up at 4:50 instead of 4:20 this morning. It was rough.
Yeah, and I'm not going to go into it this morning, but I think we've talked before. I think we've even talked on the air before about some of the bizarre, intense nightmares I had when the Army had me on doxycycline for malaria. I didn't. It's a preventative, not a palliative, but it causes weird dreams. I mean, yeah. So. Hey, yeah. Dan says, "Hey guys, back from Jekyll Island. You know what, Dan? I might need to get you on camera sometime soon and have you talk about what you saw down there. In fact, why don't you give me a call after the show, or hit me up on Facebook, and let's see if we can schedule that sometime in the nearest possible future." There's the Sergeant Major's with us. Good morning, Your Majesty. We were talking about a SCOTUS decision this morning. Yo, SCOTUS, I don't know what Thomas is up to over there, but he seems to have got everybody in line. We had a unanimous gun rights decision recently. We had a unanimous Fourth Amendment win recently, and today yesterday we got a unanimous decision on green cards. So we're going to dig into this article. I've got the article from the SCOTUS blog, in which, that's odd. This seems to be showing me the wrong monitor. Okay, so y'all give me just a second and let me see what I can't do about that.
Wow, so this is what pulling back the curtain looks like.
Yeah, this is what pulling back the curtain looks like, and it's not pretty.
Pay no attention. Pay no attention.
This is oh dear, that's not good at all. Oh, this is undoable.
Uh-oh.
No, everything is wrong. Cam is apparently part of SCOTUS blog for a moment here.
Oh, that would be slick. I've always got things that I can run my mouth about. I've had my mom read some of my stuff that I put on Facebook and whatever. She's like, you just need an editor. You just need somebody to come behind you and clean it up a little bit. I was like, yeah, that's fair. I tend to, once I get to typing, it's just, I hack the keyboard.
Dan mentions that we're making sausage. He's not entirely wrong.
Well, sausage is wrong. Well, hey man, while you're over there trying to fix that, can I bring up the related point and ask, have you seen the greeting that Kamala got in Guatemala yesterday?
Well, since you brought it up and I've got the monitor fixed, and oh, by the way, I also made it a point to pull up an article about that shit. Oh, Steve says, you want to feel a little older, boys? The middle one turns 18 today. Damn, son. Oh, but here we go. Protesters in Guatemala. They meet Kamala Harris with Trump won signs. All right, YouTube, look. I'm not making any claims about the election right here. I'm not. I'm just talking about what a bunch of foreigners said.
Right.
That's it.
Right.
And I don't even need to repeat that sentiment, because the thing that I found especially interesting here is signs that read things like, Kamala, mind your own business.
Kamala had a bad day in Guatemala. So, man,
Guatemala is pro-life. Hashtag Mamala help me.
Yeah. Man, when I first heard about this yesterday, I thought it had to be like a joke, right? And then I saw people like Sean Hannity start to share it, and I'm like, no. Man, you want to talk about not the bee, okay? I just can't help but wonder how much a South American country, or South American countries generally, know about having super secure and fair elections.
Hey, Sergeant Major points out that the president of Guatemala said the Biden administration is the cause of the border crisis.
Well, I mean, he is. Remember, like, right
after...
after...
100%.
Right after he got inaugurated, was it CNN was down there interviewing refugees, and they were like, yeah, Trump, man, we did not want to come while he was president, but now Joe Biden is president, so we're coming. And it's like, wow. Just...
We waited for Joe Biden because we didn't want to tempt the Moab. Don't go to Moab. So, let's get to the story. That worked out because we were going to try to figure out a way to finagle that into a joke, but now we've covered it and we can move on to the story. Justices deny green cards to non-citizens granted temporary protected status. And this decision was authored by Kagan. She's one of the left ears. She's no avowed racist, but she's no avowed racist Sotomayor, but she is one of the enemy justices, and came out. She wrote the opinion, and they ruled unanimously. So here's the article. I'll go ahead and drop a link to the article so y'all can read it yourselves if you want to. I'll drop that link in the chat right now, and I'll pop it onto the description in just a minute. Anyway, basically the story is this. You've got in the case of Sanchez v. Mayorkas, you've got this couple, Jose Sanchez and Sonia Gonzolez. They snuck into the U.S. illegally in the 90s from El Salvador. So they were illegally present in the United States. These are criminals, right? Y'all know me. I've said over and over again that it's not just degrading the importance of the sentiment of illegal immigration by calling it undocumented workers. The way most conservatives do think about the language undocumented workers as being something to soften the idea of illegal immigration, guys, it's not complicated. There is no such thing as illegal immigration. Immigration is a legal process. It includes a sanctioned point of entry, crossing a sovereign international border, interacting with the military of the nation that you intend to enter, moving with the permission, in most cases, of the host nation from which you're leaving. You're crossing a border, you're entering sovereign territory, and there is a vetting process and an authorization process. The thing that most people think they're referring to when they say illegal immigration is in no way a type of immigration. It is the war crime of being a hostile foreign invader on sovereign soil as the rogue agent of a sovereign foreign entity. It is, quite simply, an act of war. You are not an illegal immigrant or an undocumented worker. You are an enemy combatant. That's not my opinion. That is the actual law. What makes this case interesting is not that it's a major groundbreaking decision or a major groundbreaking change on what the law is. This is not a case where the Supreme Court has gone in and abused the grotesque authorizations of Marbury versus Madison to overthrow an unconstitutional law rather than it being correctly dealt with in the legislature. They didn't change law. They went in and said, no, the law says what it says, and this is the law. So what's happened is this couple breached our borders and continue to operate as the rogue agents of a hostile foreign nation under these circumstances for a decade-ish. And in 2001, when the massive earthquakes rocked El Salvador, they were granted temporary protected status. This is something we do to give a sort of temporary asylee status to people who are present in the U.S., whose presence is temporary in nature, whether legal or illegal, when they are present here at the time that a major crisis or catastrophe makes it difficult or impossible for them to return home. So if you break into America and then your host country blows up, we'll take care of you for a little while. So they got TPS. Go ahead.
Can I just point out that all the things that the left hates, that whole like Christian patriarchy, Zionist morality ethic, that's the reason why we show the mercy to these people that we do. That's born out of that type of tolerance where, okay, all right. Yeah, you had an earthquake in your country, so we'll cut you some slack and treat you like a human being that's got a spark of the divine in him and it needs to be recognized. I mean, by the by, doesn't exist unless the very thing the left purports to hate also doesn't exist.
Yeah, and I agree. You're 100% right. The only place that we may differ a little there is I totally support executing criminal aliens.
Yeah, but the point that I was making is our tolerance and mercy comes from a shared set of values that the left is intent on destroying. And that's
right. No, and I'm saying you are correct, and your statement is correct. And my opinion of that statement is that it is a mistake in our policy. If I had my way, there would not be a border wall. There would be a minefield. It might not even have any mines in it. It might just be a bunch of signs. But as far as the world is concerned, it would be a minefield. That would be my border policy. Nice and easy. Every now and then, you sneak one mine out in the empty field every now and then and walk a goat out on a live stream. Problem solved. You don't even have to spend the money on the bombs. Too easy. Anyway, so what happened here is the lawyer for these criminals argued that because receiving TPS... let me back up a little bit. They got the TPS, the temporary protected status. I don't know if I got this far before we sidetracked a little bit. Because El Salvador went through a series of just raucous and devastating earthquakes in 2001. And so El Salvador was hurt pretty bad. No, Tim, I'm not wrong, but I ain't right. Anyway, because El Salvador experienced these terrible, terrible earthquakes, there were a lot of criminal aliens from El Salvador that got TPS as a result. But they've maintained that TPS for 20 years. Guys, we're not talking about Puerto Rico where Abuelita can't get a roof fixed in, 7 or 8 years. This is 20 years ago. These guys got TPS after the earthquake. You're telling me Guatemala hasn't rebuilt? I'm sorry, Guatemala. You're telling me El Salvador hasn't rebuilt? Like it all? Maybe they haven't. Maybe El Salvador can't rebuild because all their people are here.
Well, all the people that want to work and actually enjoy the fruits of a capitalist economy are here. That's for sure.
Ron White was onto something when he said we should just buy Mexico outright. Send all the painters and gardeners and construction guys we've got from Mexico back to Mexico, right? Remodel the son of a bitch and flip it.
Has to do something.
Israel's got a shitload of cash and needs somewhere to move to.
Have to do something about that whole that whole Mexican cartel violence. Like, what was it you were telling me in show prep that Mexico had its midterms?
Yes, yeah. So since we're talking, I'll get to that. I'll get to that in just a second. Let me get to the argument real quick. So basically, the attorney for these criminals, the attorney for these criminals is arguing that because they received temporary protected status, that they went through a status change, right? and that the status change, because there's certain language in the law about what happens when you have an adjustment of status, that should put them on the path to get a green card or to be able to apply for permanent residency, and of course, eventually that leading towards citizenship. And what the court has said is no. So Sanchez and Gonzolez argued that the TPS statute includes a provision making TPS holders eligible for adjustment of status even if they had not been inspected and admitted or paroled when they originally entered the United States. Specifically, Section 1254A F4 states that for purposes of adjustment of status under Section 1255, the TPS holder shall be considered as being in and maintaining lawful status as a non-immigrant. They asserted that the phrase considered as being in lawful status makes the grant of TPS the equivalent of being inspected and admitted as a lawful non-immigrant. Sanchez and Gonzolez argued the detailed vetting that accompanies applicants for TPS is equivalent to the vetting that accompanies inspection and admission at a port of entry. The court sided with the government and rejected the interpretation advanced by Sanchez and Gonzolez. Section 1255 generally requires a lawful admission before a person can obtain LPR status, wrote Kagan. Sanchez was not lawfully admitted, and his TPS does not alter that fact. He therefore cannot become a permanent resident of this country. That is a win. Here's why this is an important case and an important win. Like I said, this is not a stunning reversal of some law. This is not the Supreme Court, heroically swooping down and smashing gun restrictions as it should. If it's going to exercise judicial review, it should be required to exercise it judiciously and, dare I say, quiver, constitutionally. But in this case, this is a strict interpretation. This is a strict reading of the law and saying, no, your fallacious, sideways legalese interpretation of this law doesn't fly. These people are criminals. They entered this country illegally. You do not get to break into the candy shop, get caught, and then get invited to stay and consume all of the beef jerky. Yes, I stand by that. Beef jerky belongs in candy shops. Now, unlike criminal aliens who do not belong in candy shops, let alone America. So, where this gets important, why this is important, is the law on immigration law in the United States is actually quite clear, but it's treated as if it's not, largely because cowardice and a fear of public opinion and political reprisal has prevented lawyers and judges from making actual rulings and calls and bringing cases related to immigration law. The most glaring example is our legal system operates under the assumption that birthright citizenship is provided for by the law in the United States of America. That is not the case. The 14th Amendment is very, very clear. Any person born on U.S. soil and subject to the jurisdiction thereof is a citizen. If you are a criminal alien, if you are a hostile foreign invader, an enemy combatant who has entered this country illegally, you are subject to the jurisdiction of a foreign entity. You are not subject to the lawful jurisdiction of the United States. And we treat you as if you are. Right? ICE should not be a law enforcement agency. ICE should be a military branch. Because what they are doing is not law enforcement. What they are doing is national security. ICE should not be a part of Homeland Security. It should be a part of the actual military. The Department of Homeland Security is a joke. ICE should be the Army, or probably more correctly, the National Guard. And anybody taken into custody by ICE should be treated like a prisoner of war and their presence in this country should be treated like an act of war committed by the host nation of that criminal, of that person. Right? So go ahead.
Well, so long story short, the Supreme Court ruled, hey, if you enter illegally, you entered illegally. So sorry, do not pass go, do not collect $200. You should not have entered the country illegally. And again, you make the point that, like, this is no stunning reversal. But I think it's very telling that all 9 justices, even the justices that would be sympathetic toward the cause of illegal immigrants, said, sorry, you don't get to just use a loophole in the law to just magically say, well, that just changes everything. It's like the Fourth Amendment when a few weeks ago when they were like, you kind of have to get a warrant before you seize property. That's the way it works. That's the way it's always worked. You don't get to use a legal loophole to just say, well, never mind, we're going to skip that whole warrant thing before we take your shit away from you. So it's not precisely what happened. It's more that it's another 9-0 ruling. That's what I think is pretty telling.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And like I was saying, the 14th Amendment, guys, it's not complicated and subject to the jurisdiction thereof. It might as well just say, yo, Democrats, anchor babies are not a thing. The anchor baby is not a citizen. That's not an opinion. That's the law.
I don't. I realize we're coming up on it for time, but I'm kind of curious. How come we just don't write laws that way? That just say, anchor babies don't count. Like that's
because the laws are being written by lawyers who want to keep lawyering. It really is that simple.
Well, that's awfully cynical.
Yeah, but offer me a counter argument.
Look, I'd like to, but I've been exposed to some legal documents here recently in my life that run a pretty wide scope, and I swear, man, every 3 pages could be condensed down into about 3 paragraphs and mean the exact same damn thing.
Yes. If I were ever to lose my mind and, as a result, run for an office, especially a higher office, my platform would be something along the lines of, I will repeal every law, or I will veto every bill that comes to my desk and is either more than 1 page long or isn't a bill that requires all laws to be no more than 1 page long. After I've gotten to sign the bill that says all laws will fit on a single standard letter-sized page in 12-point font and have exactly 1 action item with with no amendments. Until I've signed that law, I will veto all other laws that come across my desk. Period.
Yeah. Yeah, so going back to flipping Mexico, and the problem, honestly, with a lot of the Central and South American countries is the blatant corruption, and the fact that the cartels got a massive foothold.
Yeah.
I mean, they basically run a narco state in several of these countries. It's like you were telling me in Mexico, they just had their midterms and 97 politicians were murdered.
Yep.
Just this election
Mexico
cycle?
voted in their midterms yesterday. This is dated yesterday. Okay, so they voted on Sunday? Okay, I guess they voted on Sunday. Anyway, Mexico voted in their midterms yesterday. Insane fact, 97 politicians were assassinated just during this election cycle. This is Not the Bee, okay? This is an article from Not the Bee. Just a normal midterm election cycle in Mexico where the cartels call the shots and send the shots. That's right. Leading up to yesterday's midterm elections, 97 politicians had been assassinated, along with almost 1,000 being attacked in some way, shape, or form just in this one election cycle. Severed head from the Americas, from Reuters, severed head, body parts, and kidnappings on Mexico midterm election day. A man lobbed a severed head at a voting station in the border city of Tijuana on Sunday, and plastic bags filled with body parts were found nearby, local authorities said, as Mexicans voted across the country in midterm elections. Authorities said the man ran away, but they did not specify whether he was captured. They said they found plastic bags with human remains and several hands and severed hands in the area. It was not immediately clear what message the gruesome act was meant to send and how it related to Sunday's election. Well,
Oh my God.
I might start that investigation with identifying the head. Do you know this guy?
You know what that reminds me of? That reminds me every time a guy named Muhammad commits a murder, and they're like, "Gosh, I have no idea what the meaning of this attack was."
Well, you know, the next paragraph in the article is kind of the same thing you just said. It says, "Can we just take a minute to fully take in the fact that violence in Mexico is so bad that severed human heads are being hurled around, quote, without anyone even knowing what message the head chuckers are trying to send? That's next level violence. What an absolute disaster. Mexico goes to the polls in elections marred by violence against candidates. One candidate is a former boxer and promises to fight for people as hard as he did it in the ring." Oh, anarchy. I don't even want to speculate on that right now, brother. Because
Question.
So how close do you think this is to coming to America?
I think the
I've seen that movie. It's mostly funny. I don't remember a lot of severed heads. Although Samuel L. Jackson did drop a couple of his patented F-bombs.
Yes. And while that's a great scene, please do not ever take on somebody armed with a shotgun with a mop handle. You will lose. You will lose. But in answering his question, I don't think it will come here, especially certain parts of the country, because it goes back to that whole Second Amendment thing. We're just too well armed. If it got to the point to where you knew that these gangs were operating brazenly, like in the town that I live, that would last about 24 hours.
Yeah, but so it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen in the town you live in. But even Atlanta, which is a better citizen armed city than most of the big dim cities, we saw some problems. We saw some riots. We saw some Antifa activity. But Antifa and BLM, I don't think they're far from engaging in exactly this kind of terrorism. I mean, it's not a far cry from burning down federal buildings to lobbing human heads. That's not a big jump.
No, I guess it's really not an escalating scale of violence. But brother, that's about it for me. I have expended my lunch break doing the Brushfire Mind, and wouldn't have it any other way.
All right, brother. You be safe out there, and we will see you tomorrow. You guys, thanks for tuning in. We love you. Y'all be safe, and we'll see you tomorrow morning. Take care.